Our second Old Testament lesson this morning comes again from the book of Lamentations. It can be found printed on page 1279 of your pew Bibles. It's Lamentations chapter 3, verses 19 through 26. I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I well remember them, and my soul is downcast within me. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion, therefore I will wait for him. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him, to the one who seeks him. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
The author of the book of Lamentations wasn't the most happy guy in the world. You can tell just by the title of the book that this is not a joyful book. This is not a we're going to sing praise and celebrate kind of book. This is a woe is me. My life is horrible. I can't believe what has happened to me kind of book. But as we read even in the scripture this morning, there is still hope. There is still hope in this man's life somehow, some way. In the midst of this woe is me, Eeyore kind of life. This, well, I guess it's okay kind of attitude. He still manages to find hope. Now, I must say a couple of things, that in the midst of his Eeyore life, in the midst of his attitude, I don't know that the author of the book of Lamentations gets it all right. I think that he is seeking some form of order that can explain why his life is so bad. I think he is seeking some sort of explanation that says, it's okay. This is why such and such has happened to you. This is why your life has been horrible. He is seeking some form of explanation that can provide sense and order to the world around him. We all do this. This is one of the few characteristics that exists throughout humanity, around the world, no matter religion, philosophy, political creed, whatever. We seek explanations. We seek to know why something bad could happen. There are times when our life isn't going as well that those explanations seem to not hold quite as much comfort for us. There are times when our lives aren't going well, when we may question them and say, well, I don't know. There are those who have rejected the idea of God altogether because there is suffering in the world. Because how could God let bad things happen to good people? Because horrible tragedies take place, and they afflict the just people, the innocent, oftentimes even more than those who are unjust, those who live their lives in ways that hurt others. And we wonder, how can God exist in the midst of this? And there are those indeed, including some great scholars around the world, who have said, I can't accept it anymore. I can't accept the existence of God anymore. The world is too broken. There is too much wrong. The interesting thing about it is that those who have suffered the most, those who are often on the underside of that anvil falling from the sky, are not the ones that lose faith in God. It is those who observe from the outside, those who are trying to order their world outside of the catastrophe, that more often than not fall away from God, that more often than not lose their faith and say, I just can't see it anymore. The author of the book of Lamentations was not one of those people. He was not someone who was seeing it on the outside. In historical perspective, he had experienced experienced something that very, very few people in our society can understand. He had experienced what was essentially a genocide. The Babylonians had come and wiped Judah almost entirely off the face of the map. The Babylonians had come, and it is said that blood flowed like rivers in the streets of Jerusalem. This man had seen horror, had seen terror. When we talk about a woebegone kind of life, this man had plenty of reason to feel woebegone. The nation that was supposed to be God's people, that was supposed to be the chosen ones of God, he had watched it be wiped out. And he was living in the exile, in what little was left. He had seen it, he had experienced it. He was probably feeling, in many ways, like the squirrel of this morning's call to worship. And you may be wondering about that squirrel. Where does this come from, and how did it work its way into our worship service? But think about it. Think about any experience you've had driving down a rural road when there is a squirrel in the middle of your lane. All you want the squirrel to do is get off the road, get out of my way, I don't want to kill you. Well, unless you're like one of my mom's former driver's ed students who always said, that's such a satisfying little thump thump. But for most, we want the squirrel to move. We want the squirrel to get out of the way, get to safety. But no, the squirrel runs left and right, then left and right, but never actually leaves your path, thinking, I will evade this horrible predator. And in its attempt to escape, it stays right in front of you. And unless you're able to put on the brakes, more often than not, the squirrel doesn't make it. What does that say about our world? What does that say about the way things are? As far as I know, I can't remember any serious squirrel attacks. Why can't this happen to like a bear that's killed and mauled? Why can't this happen to a wolf, or maybe something that at least has done something wrong? But a squirrel? There are those who will say this is just the natural order of things. That's just the way the world is. Those who are strong survive. Those who are weak die. That's the way the world is. That's the way the world has always been. And that's the way the world will always be. It's the natural order. In fact, all of science at this point, almost all of science, is based around that understanding of the world. Darwinian evolution suggests that the creatures who are best created to thrive will thrive, and those who are weak will cease to exist. But that's not the way Christianity is. That's not the way Jesus proclaimed. Jesus said, I want it the opposite way. I want those who are weak to be taken care of. I want those who are on the outside invited in. I want those who otherwise would be eaten up and spit out by this world to be watched over. I want the world to be different. And so Jesus came, and though he was strong, though he was mighty, though he could call down a legion of angels, he chose a different way. He chose weakness. He chose death in order to conquer and bring life. Because it was not enough to simply save the powerful, to save as many as possible. Jesus wanted to save all and